Hello again, and welcome back to the 10 Chapters Apart podcast. I'm your host, Steven, once again, and next to me, on my left, or on my right, I should say, on your left, you're watching this podcast, so he's on the left, but he's to my... Actually, my left is my right, because they mirror... Anyways, Jason's here.
I'm all around you, Steven.
Yeah, so, hi Jason, how's it going?
It's going pretty well. I'm surprised that we made it this far, which is pretty cool. School's out. We're chilling. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good too, and today it's our 10th episode. Yay! We made it 10 weeks. And so I guess we just wanted to talk about like the podcast. More, I don't know, it's more chill this week, not trying to touch on some really hard to talk about topic, I feel like, which was kind of what we intended to do when we started the podcast. But I guess having done this 10 weeks, like, how do you feel? Like, how do you feel about the podcast, the things that we've talked about within the past 10 weeks?
I think it's been a really interesting experience because we both just sort of had this idea, or maybe this was just my idea that I forced on you. I can't really remember, but after the pandemic started and we couldn't meet anymore, we were like, let's do this podcast. It'll be fun and easy and we can talk about what we want to. And then it has been fun, but I think it's been pretty hard at times. There have definitely been some weeks that went easier or harder than other weeks. But yeah, overall, I think it's been a really cool experience so far, just to like come up with things that we want to talk about and then talk about them, especially when they're things that we don't get to talk about a lot.
Yeah, I think like there are definitely those topics that we maybe miss out on or don't hear so much in within our, say, like college ministry or at a church, that like the more touchy topics, which is something that we kind of wanted to cover and talk about here. And so yeah, it's like, it's cool that we're able to talk about it, but also kind of scary because every time we go into the week and we plan out a topic, we don't do too much planning in advance. We kind of just like talk on the spot. But when we do have those weeks where we're saying, oh, we're going to talk on like the protest, the George Floyd protest, it's like, ooh, it's like really scary, and I kind of don't really want to talk about it, but also like I feel like it would be good to talk about it just so that there's another like perspective out there. But then at the same time, there are not too many people watching this, so maybe it feels like less pressure to talk about it, or less pressure to talk in a way that would please a lot of people. So it's a blessing that like our podcast is not, there are not too many people watching, and most of the people watching us know us, so that way we don't spend time like in pointless arguments with people like, oh, what about this? What about this? What about this? I'm like, oh, it would be a lot more stressful if that were the case.
Yeah, I worry sometimes when we talk about hard things that we come off as judgmental, and I think both of us try to do our best to make it not seem that way, because as much as we try and harp on like biblical truth, we also try to back it up with like, still love your neighbor, still love God, still like love each other. Love is the number one goal here. But yeah, it is reassuring to know that most of the people who watch know us and hopefully don't think that we're judgmental in real life. So it is nice to sort of have that balance where we can come here and try to be a little bit more, I guess, just straightforward and just sort of speak our minds on things, when in other situations we would have to be a little bit more careful with our words.
Yeah, but even so, like, even the way you say it, we are more straightforward here though, but at the same time I do know that like we're both kind of like making sure that we're filtering our words to not get people so angry by some of the things that like I would say if I were just like thinking out loud or like talking to a friend, having to just balance like how everyone's different perspective and like how everyone might hear it or understand it, even if like if they don't know me and they hear something that I say that's kind of seems a bit wild, and then they take it the wrong way, and so I also have to like kind of balance it out, and it's been pretty hard.
Yeah, I agree. And especially, we went into this being like, this is going to be the truth telling podcast. And even still, it's been super hard because I think we both had this idea of like, we're going to go in here guns a-blazing, and we're still going to love people, but we're going to go in here guns a-blazing, and we're going to pave new trails in Epic, and we're going to try to share what we believe is the truth. And even like still, it's like, still have to filter it a little
dude
bit.
I would like to, like we do this to like talk about those controversial topics and like have people understand it and kind of like like understand each other and be more cordial, right? But like, dude, what if I just like put out another series that's like just our rants, like Steven rants? Like I have a bunch of those things that I could just go on and on about. Like the recent conversation that we've been having with my roommates. Like my roommates we're all here together right now, so we like spend a lot of time just talking, and like obviously ends up talking about like politics and more recent stuff. But some of the things that we talk about is just, man, I could like go on and I really want to talk about it, but it'd just be, I don't know, not sure if we can do that. I gotta censor some of that.
Yeah, stay tuned for our separate side podcast. Steven says spicy stuff and Jason's tirades.
Yeah, exactly. No, but it's like really cool to be able to do something like this, because I remember actually, like, I'm a computer science major right now. Previously, I was a biochem major, and so it's all like very STEM focused majors, and I had dreams of medicine. Like now I'm computer science, but I remember coming into college and thinking that that I was thinking of like the people that had the most effect on kind of like the world and the worldview, because I was coming in thinking like, oh man, the world is kind of, it's so sinful. There's so many things that I saw that was like wrong with like the way people thought, the way people were kind of judging or putting certain moral standards up in society. And I was like, who are the people that kind of have the most effect on others? And I was like, the people that I see the most, that talk the most, that seem to influence people the most are not like the computer scientists, doctors maybe, but like how often, I think maybe like if you get into a big accident, and the doctors by you, like you would be really grateful to them. But for like an average person that like, I don't know, goes and visits their doctor just for like a yearly checkup or whatever, I don't consider my doctor like to play a huge impact on my life, right? The people I think of are like news reporters, journalists, teachers are a big one for me. Like the impact that a good teacher has had on my life versus like a bad teacher, it's been, there's like crazy differences between those two. And I remember coming in thinking like, oh man, I'm going to STEM, but I also have this like passion to, I don't know, I have a lot of thoughts and I want to share them with people, and I wasn't sure how I was able to do that. And then so I had some thoughts of like, oh, maybe I do like our university's newspaper or the radio or something like that, and then just like didn't work out, didn't have enough courage to do that because it's really scary. Because even as here, we talk to a Christian audience, which is fantastic, because then like we have like the same beliefs, we can kind of find some middle ground, we can find a common foundation to build off of. But if you're just talking to people in the world, oh man, it'd just be way harder. But I'm kind of like doing this podcast is kind of like fulfilling a little bit of that dream of being able to, share what I'm thinking with others, and hopefully have other people take it in and think about it. And so it's all been kind of nice. And yeah, I'm glad you suggested to do it starting this term, Jason.
Yeah, it's been fun because, like you mentioned, we don't really do a ton of planning ahead, but
yeah,
I'm gonna frame that in a different way. It gives us a lot of space.
We don't think before we talk. We just talk.
It gives us a lot of like space for like freedom and creativity with our topics, because it'll be like the day before recording, we'll be like, I don't know, man, what's on your heart? What do you want to talk about? And then we can just talk about it. And I think that that's really cool, because it's like, I think it makes our topics, it sort of like guarantees that we're going to be passionate about them, rather than like, okay, today we're going to talk about X hot button topic. Today we're going to talk about X Bible passage, you know? And so I think that's been a lot of fun for me and very refreshing to sort of be able to take things at our own pace and to like, just like talk about things that we're passionate about in a way that's not like so regimented or scheduled.
Do you think that maybe that's kind of a criticism that some people might have on us? Like we don't do maybe enough preparation prior to talking about the topics?
Maybe. Also, I don't know. We've never said that until now, so maybe they thought we were preparing beforehand.
That's true. Wait, rewind. Take that out. Cut it, please.
we played ourselves. But yeah, it goes both ways. So it really depends on how you frame it. But I do think that it feels more natural to me. It seems more like the living room conversation that I have at your place. You know, we just like start talking about something, I'll share our thoughts on it. And it's a little different because it's just like you and me talking at you, the viewer. But I think it is still fun, and we still do have some bits of like that conversation aspect where people will communicate with us and text us after the podcast and stuff like that.
Yeah. So I guess we wanted to answer some questions or like talk a little bit about some things about the podcast, which is, I guess, first off, why is it called 10 Chapters Apart?
Are you asking me? I can say it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so the quick answer, there's a little bit of a story behind it, but the quick answer is that Stephen is a well-known biblical character. He basically defends Christianity in front of the Sanhedrin in Acts chapter 7. Fun fact, Jason is also a biblical character. He is a Greek person, and he allows Paul and the bros to hide in his house. But Jason appears in Acts chapter 17. So we've got Stephen in chapter 7, Jason in chapter 17. That's how we have 10 chapters apart.
Yep. So there you go. It was sort of like we were trying to decide on the name for our podcast, and I was like throwing around, where is Stephen and Jason in the Bible? And then Jason was just like 10 chapters apart, and I was like, oh, wait a minute. That sounds pretty cool. We should totally do that.
I know the words came out of my mouth, and in my head I was like, that's kind of a sick podcast name. I'm too scared to say that in case it's secretly not and it's lame.
Right. But I was thinking the exact same thing. So, yep.
Yeah, the earliest name that we considered for the podcast actually was Jesus and Jazz.
Oh yeah, that's right.
We came to the conclusion that it's a little bit sacrilegious, which I think is the truth. I think it's not the most sensitive name, but
yeah.
Our early inspiration for the name of the podcast was I don't know if you guys have heard of it. It's comedians in cars getting coffee.
Yeah.
Right. So we sort of like that sort of alliterative feel to it, and we both like jazz music. That's why we do like the before, after, and break thing. It was like, dude, Jesus and jazz, what could be better? But I like our current name more. I think it's a little bit more tasteful.
Yeah. Jesus and jazz. What's up with the jazz, by the way? Why do we like jazz? It's just both of us are musicians. I grew up learning classical piano for like all the way since I was like 5 to I stopped taking lessons in 8th grade, and then started taking lessons again in high school, and kind of I've learned classical piano a lot. But I feel like once you learn classical and then you are exposed to jazz, it's a different world, and it's like it really opens your mind up to different things. So I really like jazz, and Jason, you love jazz as well too.
Jazz is all about breaking the rules. It's fun to like, ooh, where can I break the rules? I can do it in music. Okay, let's do it there. But it's fun. I think that's why, right? It's just fun.
Yeah.
And I know that we're always trying to like just kind of throw a little bit of jazz here and there in our worship music and see if anyone other than us will notice.
Yeah. And my original thought was, or the vision that I had behind the podcast was, like at the beginning of like all the NPR like stories, they always play this like music blurb, that's just usually something nice, smooth jazz. And I was like, that's how we should totally do our podcast. And so that's how it came to be.
Yeah, I'm glad that we kept the music thing in place, even if the name didn't make it through the first round of filtering.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and then we also have our fantastic logo.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about
this? So the logo was designed by a good friend of ours. She's like does creative design and lots of artsy stuff, and so Jason asked her if she was able to do a logo for us, and it looks great.
Yeah, it turned out really good, and then she also helped us with sort of like our color scheme.
Yeah, yeah, because we're guys. We're like, oh, everything looks the same, like the turquoise is the same as green, is the same as blue,
Yeah, guys don't see shades. But yeah. So Steven records this in OBS. So what you see in the video is what Steven has on his screen, and he's basically just like screen recording. But the very first podcast, Steven fixed it. It's sort of like the post-production sort of thing. But our very first podcast was what it looks like now, but the background was like this weird wine color. And we showed it, we can say her name is on. We showed it to Hannah, and we're like, how does this look? And she's like, you need a different color, which is how we sort of ended up on the tan. Steven, I think you picked the tan, but yeah, so big thanks to her for making it look nice.
Yeah. And I guess another question that people have had before is interesting. Like to address it. Jason, why have we not had female guests on our podcast?
We tried, Steven, we tried. I don't know, dude. It's like partially so I think Ben, we had him on the second episode. We asked him personally to come on the show because we had just heard him share his testimony. It was actually not long before that. Steve and I had a really long talk with him, just like hanging out, and he had a lot of good things to say. So we had him on the show by request. Everyone else that we've had on the show, which is three people, they've all requested to come on the show. I guess it's only two other than Ben. But yeah, we were gonna have Kaylin Doyle, but then that one got delayed. We promise she's coming on in the future sometime. We hope, we think. And then, Steven, are we allowed to spoil other future guests, or do we need to keep that a secret?
Who else is lined up?
We were thinking about having Annie on the show, so hopefully that's a second.
Yeah. So it's just basically like, I guess the simple answer is that we're not like trying to discriminate and only have guys on the show. We're just also like lazy at asking people to come on the show. Like, we're not gonna go up and we'd rather have people like request to be on the show, because then they're already like kind of mentally prepared. It's hard to like kind of go out and ask a person, and if they're not sure, then we don't want to like push them to like come on or not. It's like, so the people that have guests on the show, which are Octo and David, they've both like requested to be on, and Caitlin too, and so that's just like how it goes, and it probably will go. Like, if we get the requests for someone that wants to be on, then they can be on. But like, it's a funny thing to think about. Like, are the best guests necessarily the ones that want to be guests? We were kind of talking about this like pretty recently about, if you like want to be, sometimes you're not the best for that role anyways. So
yeah.
But yeah,
if you're a girl and you're watching, come on the show. We'd love to have you.
Yeah, please fill out the little business inquiry down below and come on the show and talk about things. There's a lot that we can talk about, and
we love it when you guys suggest topics too. Like, if you come in with something that you really like want to share with the world, like, we love that too.
Yeah, otherwise it would just be I don't know, 10 weeks talking about something
Jason, how
boring,
you
something
doing?
that you don't want to listen to, Yeah.
Yeah. So Steven, I think another thing that we need to address is our release schedule.
Oh, Mondays at noon. Yeah. So the thing is, so when we started doing this, we would film on Sundays because Sundays was like the most free for all of us because I'm still like working right now and I was taking classes, and so I was like Saturday, Sunday tends to work out best, and then I would edit it Sunday night and kind of release it on Monday, but I don't know. That's like stuff. I got friends over, like stuff happens, and then I'd rather spend time doing that than pushing out the release schedule. So then it's like Monday at noon, Monday at 1 p.m. I would kind of push it to like hurry and try to edit it Monday morning and then pump it out, but then that never worked. Monday at 2 p.m., 3 p.m. And so now it's just, I'm just going to keep saying Mondays at noon, and it'll probably like never come out at noon on Mondays. We now film on Saturdays because of like with quarantine kind of everyone kind of being let out now. We've got more obligations now on Sundays with like church starting up, and so it just made more sense to start filming on Saturday. So ideally that means that we have more time, or I have more time to edit this and put it out on Monday, but not really.
Just let it be a mutual understanding between us and you guys that it will come out before the next Monday when the podcast is supposed to come out.
Right, yeah. So it's like any time before the next Monday at noon.
Yeah. Monday
until we break that rule.
Yeah. We have all week.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I guess that was just everything that we had to cover, I guess, about the podcast in general. Where do you see the direction of this podcast going in the future, Jason? Are we pushing for 10, 20, 30, 100 episodes?
You said 10, 20, 30, and I thought you were going to say years, and I was super down for it. No, I don't know. I think we still have some topics that we want to talk about and some guests that we want to have on the show. But ultimately, I think like the purpose of the podcast was just sort of to get new perspectives, more media in your guys' hands through quarantine. And when that comes to a close, I'm sure that the upload schedule will become less regular. I'm guessing that like we'll get through all of the guests that we want and all the topics that we feel are pertinent, and then we'll start using this podcast in the future as sort of just like a way to release things to you guys. It's like, if something happens in the world, like if there's another sort of incident or something on the caliber of the George Floyd thing, like maybe we'll use this podcast as a place to sort of share our perspectives on what's happening. But I don't know, or maybe we'll just do 70 years of consistent uploads. There's really no telling what will happen.
Yeah, but at some point, I don't know. I'm already starting to feel like trying to come up with things to think about every week. Like, don't want to talk about that. No. I think it's like we started this out as like, if there are things that we're like passionate about that we wanted to talk about, then we'll do it. But if we start to just feel like, I don't know, topics have been covered enough already, then I might just let this go and let this stand as a certain time. I think people also are not listening to podcasts as much now that quarantine's over. You have stuff to do with your lives. You don't have to sit and listen to us, right? But it'd be cool if like we could have more and more guests come on to talk about things that like matter to them.
Yeah. As soon as so for one, I think the podcast has sort of fulfilled its purpose now that quarantine is coming to a close. But as soon as we get to a point where we're thinking of topics just to talk about a topic rather than because we're passionate about it, then I think it's time for things to start winding down. But yeah, I'm really happy with the topics that we've covered up to this point. And I think that's like a pretty big chunk of the things that were on our hearts to share.
Does it feel like, you ever feel like sometimes that, I don't know, you wonder, does it really matter what we talk about? It's like there's so many voices out there, so many things like just get lost in the internet, you know. Is it like, I don't know.
Does it matter? Bless you.
Yeah, does it like
Yeah,
matter?
I think it matters a little bit. I mean, as much as anything matters. Just, like I don't want to go Ecclesiastes and be like everything's meaningless, but you know, I think that there are people who listen to us who have been able to think about the things that we say. I'm really grateful for the ways in which we've been challenged by people talking to us, just like having our perspective challenged after we share them and growing because of that. We had another friend tell us that he listened to our podcast from, was it last week or 2 weeks ago, the ministry one?
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks? Yeah, we had a friend tell us that he was inspired by that one to join our college leadership group. So just imagine the snowball effect. It's like we spoke in a way that convicted him. Now he's going to join leadership, and then all the people that he's going to influence there. It's like, right, there's a butterfly effect, and I think that that's super cool that we've been able to do that.
Yeah, I guess that's a good thing, like, to think about. Like, it always feels like the world is so big, and it's hard to have an impact on whatever you're doing because you're so small. But really, it's not your individual impact, but like if you like impact one person and they continue to impact, and yeah, the butterfly effect, it kind of like goes down, and it takes a lot of time for you to see that. But then yeah, it's a good reminder that it doesn't have to be I don't know, a lot of change or a lot of things, a lot of people listening to our podcast all of a sudden now, but maybe like, you know, we say something and make someone think, and then down the road it leads to something else. But who knows? Yeah. That's why we're gonna do it.
Do you want to talk about like the I guess the things that you've learned just through the process of like trying to do this? Because this isn't really like anything that either of us have done before. Have there been any like big things for you learning, like what was the easiest or hardest parts, or just anything like that?
Yeah, I would say just like I said before, the hardest part is just, I think, trying to figure out how to say things well. You know, I have a lot of things to say, but they're not necessarily said well, and the audience that is listening to us or that listens to me will interpret the things that I say differently. Like, and even if like I have the same meaning, or I want to kind of get across a point, it's very easy to misinterpret people, or to, you know, like if people are not giving me the benefit of the doubt and then like take apart what I say and like nitpick at it, you know. And I think that's something that's really hard for me, because I do like I do have like good intentions behind the things I say. I'm trying to be loving and trying not to be just completely judgmental, you know. But some things are harder to say and will be taken, you know, harshly. And so I think the hardest thing has just been trying to explain these things in a very loving way. And it's very different nowadays, even compared to like 10, 20 years ago, I feel like, in just the way that people take things, the way that it just feels like it's become harder and harder to say things without offending others. So it's taken a lot more care on my part so that the things that I say will still be loving, but also that we preserve, you know, the truth, that we're not trying to sugarcoat things. And so really, yeah, finding that balance has definitely been the most challenging thing about it. But yeah, what about you?
Yeah, I think trying to develop just the right filter has been probably the hardest part. Just figuring out the best way to say things. So like you're saying, it's exactly like you said. You don't want the truth to be altered by the way that you say it, but you want people to understand that it's coming from a loving place as you say it. And that's like a really difficult thing to do. You know, we always talk about like both the grace and the truth side, and it seems like at times there's so just like it's impossible to thread the needle on that. But just trying to like do our best at that, that's been really hard. And then also even just from like just from a speaking perspective. We both noticed in our first podcast that we both take like a really long time when we were thinking about what to say, because we were talking about, like whatever it was that we were talking about, and we're trying to be both graceful and truthful as we're saying it. And so, we take a long time to think about what we're going to say so we say just the right thing, and then it just ended up really slow. So learning how to just keep the conversation flowing, that's also been interesting just in and of itself, and trying to like think quickly but accurately. I think that's been really interesting.
Yeah, and I think also it's, I guess like the two of us were able to do this because we tend to be more like quick on our feet as far as like thinking about these things, where I don't know, others it's maybe better if they like take a long time to like ponder over things and kind of like think through things. But yeah, or it's a blessing that we're able to just like and just like kind of type it out.
Yeah. Well, we want to keep this one short just because we can, and we know that we run a long time in all of our other podcasts. So Steven, you want to take us out?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for everyone who listens to the podcast. We're really grateful, even though sometimes we just see like a view count, like however many views on the video. But like if you're listening and you like really enjoy it, thank you so much for just listening to what we have to say and hearing us out, and for everyone that's like replied back or like given us feedback. It's really been, it's really great to have that feedback. So I want to just thank everyone who has listened to us and stuck with us for a full 10 weeks, which is actually it's 11 weeks because we did a week of break. So like it's our 10th episode, but like we've been doing this running for 11 weeks. And I guess if you add on the week of prep, it was like 12 weeks. But anyways, it's been a while. Like, 3 months of talking of stuff is a long time. So I'm super grateful for everyone that listens, and hopefully it continues to more people just find this interesting and will come check it out, and hopefully we can continue to spark interesting conversation and discourse, and keep the conversation going. Don't just get too trapped in our own world of our own group of people, and like to continue to have this conversation. So that's where we hope to go in the future, and I hope that you'll be along with us when we do. So thank you so much for everyone watching, and final thing you want to say, Jason?
Just another big thank you from me for all the listeners, all the guests, everyone who submitted anything, anyone who messaged us. Just big thank you. It's been awesome to do this so far.
Yep. All right. And like always, we will see you again next week, Mondays at noon.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.